We are live, everyone. Welcome back to the Trainman Report. It's so exciting to see that there are already 5 of you on Facebook here waiting for this to start. There's a couple people on Twitch. We appreciate everyone who's tuning into this, and we welcome to the Trainman Report, episode 5. That is 5 weeks in a row that we've been doing this. We have a great guest joining us tonight, Mr. John Jordan.
Hi, everyone.
He's a fantastic part of the community and arguably a musical historian, and I really appreciate that personally. We have Alex Montagano, our train man himself here, and my name is Holden Stephan Roy. I'm here to translate Alex and make sure that we get the knowledge nuggets he's trying to convey through the stories that is Alex. We appreciate all of you being here with us today, and we encourage you to ask any questions and leave any comments in whatever platform you're on, and we'll do our best to respond to you as well. And if you are watching this, we will be uploading all of this to YouTube on a brand new The Trainman Report YouTube channel, and you should see all this content out by next week, where we'll be streaming live there as well. On that note, we have a bit of a time limit today, so let's get into it. Alex, how would you like to start this off?
Well, as always, I want to focus on our special guest who was invited to this episode, John Jordan. He is really an NDG fixture. Like you said musical historian. That's another aspect of him I'm not really that familiar with.
Well, I mean, but I hear about all this NDG stuff, local stuff, people, places, things through his music.
Right.
Thus, it would be like he's capturing the history of NDG through the music he creates, and I'd argue that's a musical historian to me.
So let me give a brief intro to John before he talks about himself, because you don't want to listen to me talk of, obviously. John is a gentle soul, lives in NEG. He's the curator of the NEG Art Gallery, Alley Art Gallery, excuse me. It's an alley. What's that, sir?
Alley Cat Gallery.
Alley Cat Gallery. He has a Facebook page where he shares interesting cat images. He is a cat owner himself. I follow his exploits with his cat, and he's also a saxophone player. I think that's your main instrument, and he used to play for Me, Mon and Mogentaler. And if anybody was involved in the ska scene, Me, Mon and Mogentaler was where it was at in Montreal in terms of ska music. Man, they were awesome, and I saw them in concert several times, and Scott and Skankdown, and I just had a blast every time I went to one of their concerts. So John, please, let's start talking the beginning, like back when you got involved in music. Tell us that story, and how does that link up with Me, Mon and Mogentaler?
Well, I got my early musical education as part of a choir. When I was in grade 3, my music teacher, I went to LCC, Lower Canada College, over on Royal. And I lived, my childhood home was on Harvard, just above Notre Dame de Grasse. So my music teacher, Mr. White, recommended I join the choir he was part of, which was the St. Matthias Choir in Westmount. So we weren't particularly religious or anything. It was just me and my mom. My dad had passed away a couple of years earlier, but we were not church-going folk, But to me, my mom, it was like a way to get some free music lessons and some free babysitting, and I actually got paid for participating in the choir. So that was my first foray into music education. And then I always did the musical theater at LCC every year. We would do like Treasure Island and Oliver and all those like Gilbert and Sullivan musicals and stuff like that. So I was always singing, and I knew how to read music, and I had a pretty good base of music theory. And then when I was in my last year of high school, my friends were all getting into the British ska bands. Like the Specials, the Beat, Madness.
One Step Beyond. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Go ahead.
Their older brothers were in college, and it was playing a lot on college radio. All that two-tone ska from England, So my friends would make me tapes of all this stuff, and that's how I discovered them and bands like The Clash and Fishbone and Elvis Costello. It was all through like it was all my friend's older brother's musical taste filtering down through us, you know.
I'm having serious flashbacks here, but go ahead, John. I'm just loving this stuff. Go ahead.
So I was really into becoming a graphic designer, and I had set up a t-shirt printing shop in my basement. And my friends got me to print them these like sort of Montreal ska scene t-shirts, which took the artwork from the British ska film Dance Craze, which was a pair of dancing penny loafers in two-tone trousers, just close up of feet. And they had me replace all the British bands with Montreal bands. And one of the Montreal bands was called Ethnic Drivers. And my friend Rob, my friend Matt, his brother Rob was the sax player for Ethnic Drivers. So my friends and I all snuck into their show at the original Rising Sun on
Oh my God.
30.
On the second story, right?
Fantastic club run by the late great Dudu Boissel.
Oh my God, what a memory! Go, I'm just enjoying this so much. Go ahead.
They were that's where the real first Montreal Jazz Festival started. Was Dudu bringing in acts like Buddy Guy and BB King, Dizzy Gillespie,
the Rising Sun,
jazz and blues acts to Montreal to Rising Sun. But then they have this other side that they had many facets to them because they're also home to the burgeoning Montreal hardcore scene. They would often have hardcore shows there. And then they had the reggae community was doing shows there too. And there was a bit of a crossover. And I guess the ska scene was in the middle between the reggae community and the punk community, you know?
Yes.
Like bridging that divide between the two scenes. So so when I saw that show and I saw my friend's brother Rob playing sax and all these great stage diving craziness and all this stuff, I was just like, that's what I want to do. So the next week, Rob took me to a secondhand store and we found this beat up old sax that it was just good enough to play. And so I bought it for like $150 and Rob gave me a 2-hour lesson showing me like all the fingering and stuff. And then I just, for months, just played along with records and learned by ear and learned all those ska tunes by ear.
So you self-taught yourself self-taught yourself how to play the sax. Is that what you're telling me?
More or less, yeah. I only had the one lesson from Rob, and then after a couple of years, I took a few lessons with Jake Hughes, who was the sax player for Swinging Relatives, who were like my favorite band. I used to go to all their shows. I would design T-shirts for them and stuff, and I was a total groupie. I was always hanging around with them. And so he gave me a few lessons for a couple of months, but apart from that, I'm pretty much self-taught, and it shows in my playing.
And you did this just to you did this before the internet, right? Because I think sometimes it's worth kind of pointing out, look, when I got a bass back in 2005, there was already cyberfretbass.com that was giving me all the tabulatures to every song I wanted, and I never really had to learn to read music or nothing, or even play by ear. I had to learn how to read the fret counting. And that was enough to kind of get the ball rolling. I tried to learn to play by ear one time. It was the worst experience. It took me over an hour to eyeball one note kind of thing. So I'm really impressed by anyone's ability to learn in an era before the internet made it stupidly easy to do it.
Yeah, I played the trombone, and I played the trombone by positioning of the slide. I never could find a note and say, oh, that's a B flat. That's the note I want.
How much time did you have to practice?
Yeah.
I had a pretty good ear. So it wasn't that time consuming. In fact, it was kind of like a shortcut, you know, if I had to, my ear is stronger than my eyes, you know, I'm not a reader. I don't read very well. So I'm much better off. It's easier for me to listen to something and then reproduce it than it is to have never heard it before and see it on a piece of paper and try and figure out what it's supposed to sound like.
That's such an amazing talent. I can't believe that you could actually take a sax and just after you hear a tune, you know notes to play in order to reproduce the sound. That's just wild.
Do you think the singing and the choir played into that? Like, because by that point you have to do a lot of vocal harmonizing, so you could probably identify notes a lot better than somebody without a background in singing.
Yeah, I used to be pretty good. I used to, for a very brief window of time, I had close to perfect pitch, Like you could play a note and I could tell you what note it was. I never got to the point where I could like identify chords, where I'd maybe certain ones that you hear a lot, like A minor, I could probably go, oh, that's an A minor chord, But right. But it didn't last very long because I didn't have to use it very much. Once I started playing in bands, we never wrote anything down. Everything was just done by memory and by ear.
Right.
And
wow.
Making recordings of our rehearsals,
Wow. But how does this all? Okay, I'm gonna force the conversation to Me Mon and Mogentaler. Is that the biggest ska band in your mind that you were a part of a member of? Was that band? In terms of notoriety and popularity?
I was involved a little bit with the Planet Smashers, and I think they probably surpassed us in terms of like.
I'm gonna be honest. I've heard of the Planet Smashers, but I have not heard of the other I can't remember.
Me Mon and Mogentaler.
Yeah, that Mogentaler. I have not yet heard of them before today, to be honest. So
what's your story and your connection to them? Like, how did that all play out?
Well, they started in 1988, and I wasn't in the band at the beginning, but they were friends of mine.
Right.
And I was already in a band, so they kind of looked up to me as like the more experienced ska guy,
Right.
In fact, the way I met them was I was going to a show at the McGill Union Ballroom, which was later Shatner Ballroom on McTavish Street, and it was a ska show. And so I was dressed for the party. I had like a black suit and a white shirt and a skinny black tie and a pork pie. I
remember it well. Go ahead. Yeah.
And,
rude boy.
Yeah. Typical rude boy. And Gus, the singer for Me Mon and Mogentaler, and Renzo, their first sax player, were on the same metro as me, same metro car. And they didn't know how to get to the show, but they saw me. So they said, let's just follow that guy. He's obviously going to the show.
Right.
They did. They followed me there. And then once we got there, they came up to me and introduced themselves. And that's how we met and became friends. And then shortly thereafter, they started the band. And their band's first show was also in the McGill Union Ballroom at the Marianopolis talent show. So they had organized the talent show and put together a band for it. And that's where the name comes in. They wanted to come up with a name that would like piss off the nuns that ran Marianopolis. And so Gus, he says it came to him in a dream, this name, Me Mon and Mogentaler.
But they wanted to piss off the nuns of what? Excuse me, you cut out.
Oh, the nuns who ran Marianopolis.
Yeah. This is funny. Because, okay, first of all, I'm going to just break here. Ska music is a type of music, like, John, you know better about its origins. But to me, it was like kind of like it came out of reggae. And it had a very repetitive, like kind of like sound, lots of brass, heavy on the brass, the horns. There was really like a horn sound, excuse me. And out of ska came punk. You could say it was a whole bunch new wave. Like it influenced the whole like alternative music scene in the 80s. And one of the features of ska music is that if you ever watched the movie Blues Brothers, right, that was kind of a ska look. It was like two-tone. We wore jackets, black pants, and if you were lucky enough, you had a pair of like you mentioned early, black and white checkered pants, right? And you could have a black and white checkered tie, remember? And they were very thin ties. Remember that, John? And you had the hat, but the styling was very, very kind of like flexible, there wasn't any strict rules about it. So that was the ska music scene. And there is a ska music festival in Montreal as well. And I went to it and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I played here at the Montreal Ska Festival with the Kingpins. After Me Mon and Mogentaler. Yeah, we played a couple of months ago for that. It was a blast.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So it's funny that you say ska came from reggae. It's actually the other way around. Ska was first.
Oh,
Ska
really?
first in like the late 50s, early 60s. And it was a faster, more up-tempo sound, you know, and it
Right.
had lots of brass instruments and stuff like that. And then they had a heat wave in Jamaica, and no one wanted to play fast. It was just too hot. So it slowed down, and then
That's a great story.
came out with a song, had a hit song called "Do the Reggae," which was one of the first slow ska songs, and that was the new thing.
Okay, but saying that, what was the origins of ska? The ska music, where did that come from?
Well, the radio stations in Jamaica were like getting a mix of music from the rest of the Caribbean, like calypso and stuff like that.
Right.
And they were also getting American jazz and R&B stations.
Right.
So it was kind of like a mishmash of all those songs that were playing on the radio at the time.
Okay. Right. I see. So then ska came first, but it was still a West Indian creation then, and it kind of transformed into reggae, and then it was they call it appropriated by the you call it the English wave, if we could use that word, in England. Is that a correct, in your mind? Is that a correct description?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Because there was a lot of immigration from for the black population from Jamaica to England.
I see.
They brought a lot of that Jamaican music over to England, and then so the reggae culture and the punk culture kind of grew together in England during that time. Because there was a lot of, one of the main themes of the two-tone ska movement in the late 70s, early 80s was unity and anti-racism.
Right.
Because those were big issues in England at the time, and still are.
Right. Wild, because it's like, if you look at New York City, punk and hip hop evolved in a similar kind of synergy, that around the same kind of time frame, with the same kind of people partying, with similar stuff happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So the to race along, there's so much to talk about, John. It's really an exciting conversation. This whole like ska scene and the rising sun, and remember there was the Beat. There was the bar, the Beat, that played ska music as well. They were on Saint Denis, if I remember correctly. But
I always remember there was the Beat and the Mansard, and they were always mentioned at the same time. Were they next to each other or something?
No, Mansard was where the Commensal was, on top of on the second floor corner of University and St. Catherine. I spent a lot of time in the Mansard. That was an alternative scene bar, and they played ska music. Not a lot, but it was part of their repertoire, along with The Cure, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, New Order, all that kind of stuff that was big at that time. But moving along, because there's really so much to talk about when it relates to you, John.
Talk about the Alley Cat Gallery.
Yeah.
Right into
talk to us about the Alley Cat, because the Alley Cat Gallery, if you ever are next at Esposito and you just go a little bit like east from there, obviously on the north side of Sherbrooke, there's this kind of weird alley between these apartment buildings. It's really a kind of a how do you say, a
courtyard.
A courtyard, yeah, quirky courtyard. Let's call it that. And it's, that has turned into a gallery of cat art. Am I describing that correctly?
And honestly, it's one of those things that's like noticeable. Like, even if you've never heard of it, when you go up Sherbrooke, you just look over and it just is so in your face. And I mean, I'm pretty sure Pokemon Go made it a Pokestop. I'm pretty sure that happened.
Yeah.
So that's a big flex.
Yeah, we weren't even, that was right at the beginning too, when we started it in 2014. I believe in October we put the first piece up, which was the yin yang black and white cats, the circle. Yes. And basically what happened was, I moved into this building in 2008, and I've been passing by this building my whole life, and I've always known this little courtyard is like something you like hurry up and walk past, because there's usually some sketchy dealings going on in here, you know? And it was like that when I moved in too. There were people doing drugs in the doorways of the apartment buildings. There were people drinking here. There were people going to the bathroom here. It said "Kill my landlord" on one of the walls. It was just it was not a very welcoming space. So I kind of put up with it for a while. You know, I didn't really think there was anything I could do about it. Although, you know, I kind of tried not confronting, but dialoguing with the kind of regular loiterers who would hang out here and try and reason with them and get them to behave better. But then in 2013, I adopted my cat Humbert when he was 2 years old at the SPCA. And I started spending a lot of time with him outside in the courtyard because I wanted him to be comfortable going outside and be safe. So I was training him on a leash to go outside. And then, now that I was spending more time outside, I started cleaning it up. I would sweep up all the cigarette butts that accumulated over the night, and, you know, broken glass some of the times. And then we had a florist next door at the time, so I started buying hanging plants and hanging them from the fire escape and stuff like that. And then I got a roommate in that year, 2013. This guy moved in, and he was a real handy guy. He worked in building management and repairs and stuff like that. So he had tons of tools and access to materials and stuff like that. And we put a table in the courtyard where the neighbors could kind of sit and hang out. And we were sitting out there one day wondering what we could do about the graffiti, the "Kill my landlord." And we would always get new graffiti every few weeks. You know, we'd get tagged, a big blank wall, you know. It's an open invitation for taggers to put their scrawl on it, you know.
Right.
So we were watching them clean off the newest graffiti, and we're like, what can we do? And so we thought, oh, maybe we should do a mural, you know. Taggers seem to respect murals a lot of the time. And we thought, oh, we'll never get permission to do a mural. There's no way the landlords will let us, and there's no way they'll pay for it. So that's probably not going to work. And then someone threw out this like wooden round kitchen table. And I kind of got a little inspiration. I said, what if I painted a design on the tabletop and we mounted it on the wall with screws, you know, between the bricks? And we just do it. And if they don't like it, it's easy to take down. There's no damage. And if they do like it, then great. You know, so that's what we did.
I love this story.
Asking for permission, we said, let's ask for forgiveness. And so we put it up in the middle of the night and waited. And one of the reasons I picked a yin-yang design was because at the time, the landlords and the businesses out front were all Asian. So I appeal to the Asian culture that we were living with.
Very smart.
And it did. The landlords loved it. The businesses loved it. The neighbors loved it. So we said, can we keep putting stuff up? It's going to be all cats. And they said, yeah, sure. And so every week or two after that, we just find something, print it out, mount it on a piece of wood, and screw it up to the wall.
Good for you. That's an awesome story. That's an awesome story about, you know, taking ownership of your little piece of the world, like, you know, thinking globally, acting locally.
Did the taggers and stuff respect it at first, or was it like a bit of a back and forth?
I think 99% it's been successful. We did, this guy Nomis tagged us once. He tagged right on the paintings, tagged about 8 of them, I think, and I was able to repair like 3 and replace the rest. And then the time we've been tagged is I have by Vanessa Van Hollywood, that's kind of already got sort of a tagger aesthetic. It's a cat woman licking her paw. And so someone tagged that, but you can't. It's not really noticeable because there's already sort of tag like graphic.
I see.
That's cool. It's interesting that like by putting a little effort into the aesthetic of the area, that it just kind of changed the entire vibe of the area, which I think kind of ties into some of the bigger topics we've discussed about, tax money and beautification efforts and like putting some effort into the neighborhood like that. So it's kind of like a micro example of success on how making an area more pleasant changes the demographic. I mean, I don't know if people still loiter there. It does look like a good alleyway to hide out if you're trying to have a good place to hang out quite off the street, but I imagine it's been successful enough to change the dynamic a bit.
Well, what's really changed is the tenants of the building seem to be staying for longer since we've put in the gallery. It's attracted people that otherwise probably wouldn't have lived here if they had seen it the way it was before, with the state of things as they were, and people seem to stay longer. We don't have as much turnover in the apartments anymore.
These are good things. That means people are staying because they like the building and they like the environment. And John, again, you deserve an enormous amount of credit for culturally enriching us, not only through your music, but through, this kind of like, I don't know, we'll call it a guerrilla art. They call it guerrilla. Have you heard of guerrilla gardening? Where they kind of throw balls of seeds at the side of freeways to get flowers to grow. This
I know
is
some people who do that.
Yeah, it's just this an awesome story, John, and thank you so much for, first of all, for doing it and enhancing the quality of life for all people in NDG, and making your building a better, more pleasant place to live. And obviously, you've seen fruits, the success of your efforts. So, congratulations! That's just awesome. And John has been, if you are on Facebook and you follow his cat alley, he posts on a regular basis interesting cat art, and I just think it's a great like mechanism for people to like become tuned into art. And a lot of us have pets. I'm a cat owner. I have two. And I just think that people make that kind of emotional connection with their pets and then the art. I think it's a great segue, or a great way of connecting everything together. And thanks so much, John. That's amazing. That's a great story.
Oh, thanks.
It's a really benefit. It's one of those things that makes people who don't live here want to come here, because there is something interesting about it. It is like, it's honestly like something you'd expect in the plateau, but in the middle of NDG. And that's actually cool, like that you created that and set it up. Like I didn't know you did it when I first interacted with you, but like it was like, oh wow, like that's a real staple of the neighborhood at this point, and it'll probably be there for a very, very long time.
John, where is your cat right now?
One of them's here. One of them's at the dépanneur.
Okay. How's the new? I remember there was a new espresso bar that just opened recently on Sherbrooke. How's that doing? Is it doing well?
They seem to be doing very, very well. They're always busy. I talk a lot with the employees when they're on their breaks and stuff like that, and they're happy. It seems to be doing very well.
Why don't we give them a plug? What's the name of that espresso bar again?
Micro Espresso.
Can you repeat that? You cut out.
Micro Espresso.
Micro Espresso's on Sherbrooke. So if you want,
where is it on Sherbrooke?
5707 Sherbrooke West, between Wilson and Harvard.
Right beside Esposito's and right beside the cat alley, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So I also want to make another local business plug. Can everybody see this?
What's
can anybody?
Can
anybody?
Bagels.
There goes Diz's Bagels. That's right. I want to make a message to NEG. Right in the plateau, they're always raving about Saint Viator or whatever the case may be. In NEG, we got Diz's, and you know what? It's the best.
I've never had. Where are they?
What's that?
Where
Where
are
the
they?
real bagel used to be.
They're up on Côte Saint Luc on the corner of Grand and between Grand and Beaconsfield.
Yeah,
Do you know what
isn't it? That's where the real bagel or whatever it used to be called used to be.
it's called? Diz's Bagels now. Yeah, it used to be called Real Bagel. Now it's Diz's Bagel. So
It's right next to Baskin Robbins
now,
and
if you're
St.
not,
Luke High School.
yes, that's correct. It's near there. So if you're not familiar with the bagel, it is one of the precious divine gifts that was bequeathed to us by the gods. And you cut this in half and you put it in a toaster, and you could eat it in a variety of different ways. You could put cream cheese and strawberry jam on it. You can eat it with salmon lox. I make sandwiches from them. So you know what? It's a good meal. It's not just bread. There's eggs in there, honey, sesame seeds. It's really a celebration. So here's a plug for Diz's. All right. So we talked about Alley Cat.
I wasn't expecting that. I was like, I think Montreal knows about bagels. I got the Montreal bagel Nikes.
Alrighty. But
We
again,
know our bagels.
I repeat, Diz's is the best bagels in Montreal. Okay, they beat them all, and why? Because it's in NDG. That's why. And I really think that we need to think that way as it relates to our local businesses. Because if we don't support them, who will? Well, do you think the people in Plateau will, or? So we talked about John and his musical career, the art gallery. We touched on your Facebook group, and also it's the next issue is the happy birthday. So it's my birthday today, but it's not my birthday is not important. The reason why I'm in full train gear is because I realize now I have groupies, and some gentleman who's a friend of mine, Marc André Gervais, his partner, Method, reached out to me and asked me if I would give him like a birthday greeting in my full Trainman gear. So Marc André Gervais, joyeux anniversaire et bonne fête. Et merci bien pour votre entrée dans Alex Trainman Montagano. So that is the birthday celebration. I'm 55 today, by the way, so now I qualify for seniors discounts. I don't know how I should feel about that, but going on, the next thing on the agenda is the Trainman rant. And should I do a Trainman rant or not? Because I've got a rant in me.
What's the rant you want to give?
It's just about the budget the city passed and how CDNEG just got screwed again in this process, and how, in my mind, we're being completely misled by our elected representatives on the financial situation in the city of Montreal. That's my rant. I'm really not happy right now because yesterday, Monday, they voted in the new 2024 budget, and Benoit Doré, who is the point person in Projet Montréal, who handles finances, who is also the borough mayor of Sud-Ouest, went on TV and rationalized the 4.9% tax increase, which is affecting us all. Okay, renters, homeowners, it's affecting us all. But that is a misperception because it's not 4.9% increase; it's higher. That's because Benoit Doré is not accounting for the tax increases at the borough levels. So, in order for you to understand how the city operates, don't look at the city of Montreal as one city. It's not a city anymore. It's not one city anymore. The city of Montreal is a collection of boroughs, right, that have their own tax rates, believe it or not, and their own debt loads. And then we have the central city, right? So the central city is imposing taxes, right? And they have their increase. And then the boroughs are having their increases as well. And in NDG, CDNG, our local taxes on average went up 9.5%. So when you combine that with the central tax increase, it comes around a 4.9%. It comes to it averages out about in the 6% region. And I'm really getting sick and tired of our elected representatives not really representing the financial situation of the city properly. It's really getting on my nerves. And that's my rant. Do you have anything you would like me to add at this point, or can I continue with this rant? Because I'm not done yet.
All right, just so that everyone's up to page with what Alex is saying. They got on the news and represented one tax rate, but there's more tax rates, and they're being deliberately ambiguous so that you feel that the tax rate and tax hikes you're going to be facing it's actually worse than they're portraying. But due to the factual nature of how they worded it, they're not lying, but they're being misleading about the reality you're facing. Kind of like when you buy a car and they average numbers as opposed to giving you real numbers about what you're going to pay every month.
Okay, so there's that aspect, right? So as you know, I've been to the Commission d'accès à l'information, and I was seeking information on the financial status of the borough and the city. And the other thing I discovered is that what's happening is that if you take the cumulative tax increases, what cumulative means is that, okay, you got $100, the city raises taxes by, say, they raise taxes, say 1.9% in this year. Okay, so now you're paying, $101.90, but then they're raising the tax next year, but that tax rate is on the larger amount. It's not $100. So it just keeps on. It's like kind of compound interest, if I could use that kind of like analogy, but it's not perfectly correct. And the deal is that the central city has been raising these taxes, right? And they've been giving less back to the boroughs every year in terms of the taxes they're taking from us. So they're taking more from us each year and returning less back to us each year. So in essence, the monies that we receive as a borough, and this is not unique to CDNEG, it's true for all the boroughs, the monies that we receive from the boroughs to deliver basic services like cleaning streets and all that kind of stuff, park maintenance, all has been going down in real terms. And I did the math. And here's the math, okay? So the math is, if we look at the increases, right, factoring in inflation, right, this is based on 2016 and 2024, our actual budget in real terms of city transfers went down 13.46%, right? But during that same period, the city raised taxes by 22.13%. So it's really what they're doing is they're squeezing us, right? They're reducing the amount of money they're returning us. And what they're doing is they're forcing the boroughs to raise taxes to make up for the difference. So now we're getting taxed twice. And people are not realizing this, and the media is just doing an awful job. I'm sorry,
Alex,
but I got
make pie charts, my guy, so you can flash some pie charts.
You guys are not getting this, eh? Well, I'm gonna leave it at that. This session,
it's good information. I follow you because I can track the numbers, but I know that if we want to compel the people, we gotta be a little more visual with it than quoting percentages.
I will get visuals, but what I can tell you is that CDNDG is the most populous borough in the city of Montreal. And we received the lowest per capita operational budget in the city, and we received the lowest investment budget in the city. And it's so all tied.
That means is that you're probably going to have to wait longer for them to clear your streets.
We're getting screwed
into real life, my guy.
It's such a screw job.
Operational budget. We got to talk about how that affects people, or else nobody's gonna. It just ends. So it means the parks get their
parks are not getting cleaned. We're not getting that new art gallery or that new exhibit space for local artists. People like John, local artists, are not getting funds in order to support their activities to beautify and improve our neighborhood. Local community groups are not getting the funds they need in order to support their activities related to seniors, children, whatever the case may be. So
I can say that Notre Dame des Arts significantly lost a lot of city money compared to what they was getting.
Really? So there's an example. So this affects us in all like small little ways, but it's very, very, it adds up in a really kind of a negative way for us.
It's also just worth questioning where the city's spending their money. Now, maybe people have different opinions of this, but like they put a lot of money into animals. Not to say I'm against animals. All love to animals, but they put like no money into homelessness.
Yeah,
And
and that's
like,
another issue. Yeah, another issue in
and
CDNDG. We have
I only bring it up because my girlfriend works for the Native Women's Shelter, and like when you, and it's not to say that animals or human life should be valued one way, but it's such a disproportionate number, and it's just worth questioning where the city is prioritizing money at the end of the day. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but this is what they do with the tax money that we're talking about. And these larger initiatives that they take on is why we get less of that money back at the end of the day.
Yeah, and what you're seeing in the city finances is that the central government is just sucking up more and more money, and what they're doing is instead of returning the funds back to the boroughs and indexing our budgets properly to inflation, they're not. For example, the index that they gave to the borough of CDNG and to all the boroughs this year was 2%, but they're collecting 4.9% more in taxes from us. So
Alex, we
why
get the point that this is happening with the we get
it's
it.
just insane. And then what happens too is they have this formula that they're using to determine the budgets accorded to each borough. And this formula is not working for CDNDG. And there's a lot of reasons behind that, and I'll discuss that later. But that's it. So that's my rant. And the main I guess point of the rant is Benoit Dore is saying things on TV that are, like you said before, that he can defend as being factually correct, but in reality, they're giving a misrepresentation of the city finances and how it impacts us.
So
And
so
this
what do
wait, I want
people
one last.
do about this?
I want one last point. Okay, don't believe me. Okay, say, oh, Alex, he's in this train man costume uniform on social media. He's not credible. Do this exercise for me. When you get your tax bill this year, and you could do it as a renter too, you could look online, right? When you get your tax bill this year, compare what you pay this year to last year and look at the difference. There, I'm done.
Awesome. I'm not mad at what you're saying. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, what are people going to do about that? Because that's kind of always, like I said in the past, we need to have that action point. So is it go to city council meetings and ask questions like you do? Like, is that the strategy? Because, like, ultimately,
I don't
if
know
we just
anymore.
leave it as a rant, then it's not going to go anywhere. And I think
I don't know what to do anymore, to be honest with you. Because the thing that concerns me right now is that the city for the last 5-10 years, well, since the Coder administration, or Tremblay, let's say since the Tremblay administration, has been flush with money. There's been a lot of money coming in. There's been a lot of development, new condos, and tax revenues have gone up in spite of the crying of the elected representatives of the lack of new sources of revenue because they're very dependent on property taxes. And what I see now is that we're going into a difficult period where the city is going to be constrained. There's going to be less money available, and I don't see that the city is going to really fix the problem, because for them to fix the problem, it means that Central City is going to have to get its financial house in order and get spending under control. And I don't think they have the capacity or the political will to be able to do that. And this, unfortunately, I'm like, I guess I'm reaching out to the community to give me ideas of how we can press, our issues and press our needs to our elected representatives. But right now, I guess I'm kind of in a kind of depressing period personally about how to move this file forward, because I don't really I see a lot of stormy skies ahead of us. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can say that hitting the same the nail in the same way over and over again is not going to move the needle. It is
No.
important to always create change, focus
Yeah.
on what we can do. So we get it. The city's fucking us in terms of the taxes. It's actually an important thing to care about. What we can do is press the city councilors, but also, like, what do we want as a community? What should they be spending money on? Do we have answers to those questions? Because I'm only bringing this up because, like, I remember when we did go to the Terrebonne Bike Path meeting, there was this group in front that literally had this open ballot on where we should spend city money, and they asked us to prioritize it. And it's things like that. Like, and then, you know what? Just because I was curious, right? I found things to do in NDG group, and I'm seeing like Santa Claus is coming to town this week. I don't know if anyone knew that. Santa Claus is coming to NDG on December 16th. I don't really remember where.
There have been in my mind these token efforts to to spend money in NDG, but when you think of the fact that we're 170,000 people,
so let me ask John. John, what do you think would be something that the city should prioritize if we were going to get more tax money? Like, where do you feel it should go?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think definitely housing, homelessness, and housing. Affordable housing is the main priority at this point.
Yeah, and I if I was elected representative, I would be obviously pushing for. I have a lot of wish lists, like a Dal Public to connect us to the Lachine Canal, because there's really no safe way for us to get the Lachine Canal. I would be talking
but focusing on the housing, right?
Right.
So what we could say is, as a community, if housing is the issue that we care the most about, which, to be fair, I really care a lot about that. You see, I brought up homelessness earlier. It's something I am passionate about. And I don't ever hear it coming up, which is why sometimes I think things like bike paths are goofy, because there are like real fucking issues in the neighborhood that don't really get talked about at the same level of frequency or passion as some of these lighter issues. So it's like, maybe if we took the effort of, look, these are real problems we're facing as a community, and this money, if we were to get it, would be used to fix these things, we could then make a bigger plea to the city via petitions and other formal requests as a community beyond the political sphere. That to me is like an action plan to move forward, as opposed to just leaving it as a rent.
Yeah, there is a social housing that was abandoned on Cavendish, right near the Benny complex, and there was some rumblings by Desiree McGraw, who is the MNA, on trying to jumpstart that. I know that Bedfoy, who is with the Red Coalition, made a stink during the election about abandoned social housing on Walkley Street. And again, like, why is it that these public housing or these social housing facilities have been abandoned and are just there and they're disintegrating? And then also there was a residence. I remember during the election, some woman talked to me about, near the dairy down on Saint Jacques. There was a residence that used to be run from Salvation Army for seniors, and that's no longer. It's all boarded up. It's all like now falling apart. And why is this happening? I don't know. And like, yeah, there's, a rant obviously doesn't solve those problems, but why is it that we see in NEG this like constant like neglect, and the lack of investment? And I think it's unfortunate, but I think a large part of it is because we've become marginalized within the province and the city. Not only are we the largest Anglophone population in the city, but there's a lot of immigrants here, and I think that plays against us. Now, how do we organize ourselves to pressure the system? I have ideas about that, but that's really a big mountain, a big hill to climb. So I will continue to climb it, but I think that one of the best ways.
You pie charts are better than just saying percentages.
All right, granted, but saying that, right, and the pie charts will come. Saying that, how do I show pie charts on a Zoom call? I like,
we share screen.
Okay, you can share screens. Okay, so saying that, I think that we need to. I think part of this purpose of this podcast is to increase sort of knowledge, community knowledge of what's happening to us, and in order for me to have a sane conversation or credible conversation, I need to call from the data, and that's what I'm trying to do. That was part of the exercise of me going. We
just also need to attach the data to real life. That's
that's what you're there for, and John's there for. And the other thing I will say is that at NEG, it kind of like is our Achilles heel, but it's a kind of like a positive and a negative at the same time. NEG takes care of itself in many ways. Look at John. He basically beautified an area that was, you know, had issues, and it brought a lot of value to the community. He personally cleaned it up. He's the one who put up the art. And there's this expression that people in NEG take care of themselves, but in a sense, the city is kind of banking on that, right? And like, yeah, we take care of ourselves, but it'd be nice for us to have the resources and made available to us so we could realize projects like John's project, but take it to the next level, right? Why is it that, like, you see in boroughs, I don't know if you've seen down in Sud-West, but they have big like panels of like public art that are in like public spaces, like
block.
Yeah.
And that kind of
why
stuff.
why is it that we don't have something like that in NDG, CDNEG? It's like these are questions that
people like don't really band together, I find, and express that interest. Like I'm part of the problem. I never really cared, but I think that's why I'm trying to focus on what we can do, because it's easy to just rant and just aimlessly complain about all the things that are there, but if there's no galvanization point, then it's just the same cycle. So it's
but there's public funds to pay someone to do that, right? Typically what would happen is that you would have our tax dollars, we would have a person who would coordinate that type of activity in the neighborhood.
I just watched what happened when the city paid for a study. Maybe.
All right. Yeah, but the problem therein lies is that they're not getting people like John to take head of it. They're not paying someone like John.
At the end of the day, they're like, the reality is we can talk about all the idealistic states of it, but if you want the city to care, it will take things like how Joel invoked the Montreal Charter, and if the community really organized, and if we took the time to like go through actionable steps people can take and showcase it, and then actually do these things and work together as a large enough thing. Because if I recall correctly from my time interviewing y'all politicians in the last election, a petition with like 500 signatures with postal codes is a very heavy weight in local politics. So there's so many legal options at our disposal that would like count for stuff, but like standing outside with signs in front of a public thing is absolutely useless and doesn't create change. If 500,000 people showing up for Greta didn't solve climate change, I don't know what anyone thinks their protest is going to do. There are legal channels that actually can create change via data, because that's how it's going to work, is you can create data. See, that's what the city does, is they create data. And we as a population, if we do want to see change, need to create our own data sets that become irrefutable, such as 1,000 of us care about this issue, do something about it. Y'all know that it takes 3,000 people to vote somebody in this place.
It takes actually less, but that'll be another show. Okay, so Holden, thank you so much. I want to say how much I appreciate Holden for grounding this show, because as a son of an accountant, I can get really lost in the numbers really quickly, and people may get lost in that exercise. So thank you very much, Holden. And then more importantly, John, as I mentioned earlier, before the show started, we were chatting as a group, to all people who are listening to the podcast right now, how we're trying to build a community project here. And I can't tell you how pleased I am that John Jordan agreed to come on and talk about his story, his connection to NEG, and how he's engaged us in this artistic odyssey. And John, sincerely, I want to thank you very much for coming and joining us. And
Thanks for having me.
And then I also want to state that we definitely want you back on again at some point in the future. So we'll be calling on you to come and share with us your thoughts and ideas on art and your role and what you've done, and what if you have any new ideas. If you have new ideas for artistic projects for the borough or for NEG, love to hear about them, John. I know there's some pretty cool stuff happening down in the St. Jacques Escarpment in terms of public art happening there. And so I want to thank you again for joining us. So thank you very much. And I guess that's a wrap for this episode, is it not?
I mean, we got to thank all the people watching us live.
Oh,
all the
yes.
people that came through.
Love you guys.
Up in the chat. We have to thank Carl for making sure that you got your happy birthday. Appreciate all y'all watching this. We are trying to grow this, so once you see the YouTube, make sure to subscribe to that, and you'll be able to watch all the past episodes there. Like I said, we are trying to get this onto the podcast networks. If you do want to come on the show yourself, let us know, and we'll have you here. You can talk about yourself. Like, I don't have the highest standards. I want this to be like anybody that's an NDG should be able to come on the Trainman Report, because that's how we create a real community vibe.
If you have any ideas how we could move, like, the community forward, vis-a-vis, any issue.
We're probably just gonna organize people. If you want, we'll create like the Trainman Club or something, and we'll have a way to organize people together and actually try to take some initiatives. That's the biggest things we can do, is to create a hub.
And John, you created an NDG song, right?
I have a few, yeah.
So we definitely have to have you back talking about the NDG song. Maybe we should talk to John of using his music as kind of like a backtrack soundtrack for our podcast. Again,
totally figured all that out. But yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you all for watching, everyone. Make sure to tune in next week on Tuesday. I believe Moro Pena is going to be our guest. And so if you want to see the guy who's currently the main admin of Thrive NDG, which
that's going to be a nice
group.
That's going to be an interesting interview, with Maro. And he also ran for office with Ballarat Wholeness. So he's a person who's engaged in the community, as well as John Jordan. John Jordan has, he's done many things, and a big contributor to the community. So again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record. Thank you, John. Have a good night.
Awesome. So live long and prosper, everyone.
Take care.
Guys.